Good morning, everyone. This is Justin Roberti. Good to see you all again. We're launching a new show through When Alt seasons called Incognito. Incognito is a matter of hiding identity. Incognito or incognito is Latin base for essentially the act of discovering knowledge. So we're going to be doing a lot of talking about blockchain on here, about Web3. We're going to be doing a lot of talking about AI, much more AI, and that's what we're going to be covering today. We're going to be covering really one of my favorite topics in the area, which is decentralization. And we should be having the great Tuvi Saliba join us for that as well. You know, folks, AI and crypto are no longer separate stories. The Central Bulletin says that AI systems are now using wallets, trading autonomously, running DeFi strategies, and using stable coins as payment rails. I remember seeing a press release coming out from BNB Chain from a couple of months ago where they're already talking about having 60,000 bots. So how many we're going to have we have by now? I think it's just going to increase exponentially throughout the year. I hate to make a guesstimate because I'm afraid it will be too low no matter what I say. The big pressure point is payments. AI agents need to pay APIs, other agents, data providers, services in real time. And traditional banking was not built for software agents making microtransactions all day. The report says that AI agents are now account for 58% of crypto trading volume on major platforms. Think about that for a second. If you've been a degen following this space for a while, that is staggering to me. If that number holds up, crypto markets are already becoming machine-to-machine markets. Good Lord, 58%. So we are already sort of outnumbered, at least in terms of transactions. Two crypto standards are emerging for the agent economy. Coinbase's X402 for agent payments and Ethereum's ERC 8004 for on-chain AI agent identity. Translation, agents may soon need wallets, reputations, and payment rails. I don't know what this soon is. It sounds like they are kind of already there. The AI token market is splitting into two camps: serious infrastructure projects, that's what we have today with IO.net, that provide compute, storage, training, or inference, and weaker projects that just slap AI on a token and hope the market blinks first. Well, not that there's anything wrong with that either, man. You've got to get out there and we try and follow the trend. That's what I do after all. Chamath says that Meta completely fumbled AI, arguing the company could have become America's open source AI champion, but missed the moment. The only thing that I would add to what he's saying there is that, they fumbled it, but so did OpenAI, and certainly so did Grok with their Mecha Hitler business. I mean, AI has been a disaster of PR gaffes, to say the very least. If I was their PR agency, I would be losing my mind. That comes from Benzinga. Jamath's bigger point is that the AI world may split between closed source American models, low-cost foreign open weight models, and decentralized rebel alliance of distributed compute. GitHub's former CEO has launched Entire, a decentralized Git network built for coding agents. The pitch is simple. If AI agents are hammering centralized developer platforms, code infrastructure may need to distribute too. That's from ZDNet. Entire says network can mirror GitHub repos across regions, reduce heavy red traffic, and support agent-first workflows with tools like Codex, Claude Code, Cursor, and GitHub Code Copilot. So this is a big brand extension for GitHub to create a platform for this. Frankly, they've been about the developers so much right now, and that really is the use case that has so far taken off. I mean, with some stumbles, but coders using AI to vibe code and really to ease the iteration of the creation of different working models. That's really what it's been excellent for. The AI infrastructure debate is moving beyond big data centers or bust. Richard Dean Jacob argues the future may look more like an energy grid, giant AI foundries at the top, regional compute centers in the middle, and local edge systems closer to users. That's from the Santa Fe, New Mexican. Now, I just want to introduce who we're about to bring up. Today, we start with Gaurav Sharma from IO.net, a project working on one of the biggest bottlenecks in AI, compute. AI needs huge amounts of GPU compute. but that power is expensive, concentrated, and mostly controlled by the biggest cloud companies. IO.net is trying to flip that model by connecting distributed GPU and CPU resources into decentralized clusters for machine learning, inference, rendering, and other high-performance workloads. So the question is, not just can DePIN support AI, the question is whether decentralized compute can become real infrastructure, reliable enough for builders, affordable enough for smaller teams, and open enough that AI does not become a private empire run by a handful of cloud giants. And Lord, that is something we want to avoid. Cloud giants being particularly fearsome in first edition Dungeons and Dragons. We certainly don't want to run into them. But no, in all seriousness, folks, we've already seen this happen with social media. We don't need to have this happen again, to have our data and our futures essentially run and controlled by a few techno bros. That's not what we're looking for. So I'm excited to bring Gaurav on. Let's go ahead and get him up here, and we're going to go ahead and begin this interview. Gaurav, how are you doing today, man? Good to have you on.
Doing great. Likewise, I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Great to have you. A little bit hot here in Pennsylvania, but very good to have you, sir. So, what is it what's the first thing that IO.net is looking to resolve? There's been a lot of flack around AI up till now, particularly building out AI infrastructure. People are getting very upset around what I consider to be very poorly handled communications around the need for compute and these AI data centers, which they've allowed to become a sticking point between audiences and the big AI companies, which has given them an approval rating even worse than crypto. How do we address that? I think we all intuitively know we don't want a centralized model with these monolithic organizations just owning us while we use our LLMs and owning our data. What's the alternative future that IO.net is working toward?
So two data points for people to realize, right? One is when in future we are saying that everything would be built on AI, people should realize that 70% of the cost of the whole AI system which they're building is spent on compute. So the lion's share of expenditure which are happening in the AI side when you're building your products is happening on compute. That's one. And the second thing which a lot of people who are not from developer background, they don't realize is that in future, your data and AI models are really, really important, data in particular. Why? Because in past, when you wanted to build a product, if you basically gather like one of the best engineers in the world, you can compete with the centralized players in a fair way, right? But in future, where AI is the main game, unless you basically have access to data and compute, you just cannot compete. Even if you have a best engineer in the world, but you don't have compute and you don't have data, you cannot create a feasible model to compete with centralized players. So this hegemony of few players owning the market is actually becoming bigger in the age of AI, and people aren't realizing it. By the time they'll realize it, I think the fight will be lost. So if you want to have a fair marketplace for builders and consumers, 3 years in the future, not even like 10 years, 3 years in the future, having the autonomous and decentralized environment for compute and data is one of the most important things which should be there.
Sure. It seems like if you look at cases like, I believe it was Oracle that ran into a problem where I think Uber had the same thing. Amazon was running to this to some degree too, where they're going through what they'd allotted, for tokens for processing with an AI, in the first quarter, what they had allotted for the entire year. And it's really raised some questions about whether big AI has set the price point correctly. Is that, what are your opinions on that? And is a decentralized model going to be easier for businesses to work with? Because obviously we want to be able to, wherever we find that AI is working effectively within our workflows, assuming that we're other businesses adopting it, we want to be able to lean into that. So what kind of better solution is IONet offering around that? How do you see that working?
So we are basically a decentralized platform where we got to get the compute from the people, for the people, and actually by the people, like literally how a democracy works, right? So when we say we provide compute, this inventory is coming from the people, right? And these people are normal gamers, uh, data centers, right? We
Mhm.
have almost like more than 50 data centers
Right.
on our platforms. And I think at least 10 plus I know personally. And these guys were all managing data centers for Amazons and Googles of the world, right? And how economy works 101 is that whatever expenditures are happening in the company, to make them survive, those costs are eventually percolated down to the consumers. So now imagine if you're a Google and Google is giving a compute to any builder. Google is having like building like the most costly places in New York, Singapore, so on and so forth, right? Their sales
Mhm.
guys are earning millions of dollars, right? Their
Oh yeah.
engineers are earning millions of dollars salary, right? Eventually, all that cost which is there in managing those infrastructures, having those big teams, big locations, who will pay for it? Eventually the builders pay for it, right? They're not
Right.
bearing the cost. The cost is actually bared by the person who goes to those platforms like Google or AWS and hire from there, right? That's why the cost which is there on AWS is pretty high. On the other side, when you come to these data centers, like tier 2, tier 3 data centers, where these data centers are managed by same people who were doing the work in Google, but they went out, started their own venture, is at a much cheaper price, right? It's the same thing. If you go for a coffee in a big like showroom, you'll pay extra price. But if you go to the same coffee place in your neighborhood, you'll pay maybe one third or lower the price for the same quality. That's exactly what's happening. But the money involved in AI is so high right now that a fair marketplace is not allowed to be brewed up, right? Right now, the biggest players are the top three, and they want to keep it that way. So, like right now, when we actually started our business 3 years back, when I was in Binance, and before that, I was in the booking holding groups of the companies. I realized that even if you're like a $50 billion company also, and you are sitting on a pile of cash, and you go into the market and try to hire 100 GPUs, latest GPUs, you'll not get it. You will not get it, right? And if
Mhm.
you're trying to compete fairly in the AI marketplace in future when you're a builder, if you don't have access to compute and you wait for 6 months, you're basically losing the development war right in the beginning, right? So we
Right.
felt there's a business to be made. There is a power given, like which is supposed to be given back to the builders, so that there is a fair marketplace for builders. That's why we started IO, and we realized that there was enough capacity of compute there from data centers, gamers, which could be aggregated and giving back to the users. And especially at that time, the idea came from because Ethereum was moving from proof of work to proof of stake. So there was a lot of compute which was there in the market which could be reused. We started from there, and we eventually realized that this idea works. You can aggregate this inventory from all the places. And the proof was in the pudding that within, I think, a year, we were sitting on an inventory size of more than $5 billion, which I think there are very, very few data centers which can actually say they own. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's in a nutshell what we have done. And I think we started around like focusing on the business around a year back. And within a year, we're like sitting on like $25 plus million ARR revenue. We have inventory of $5 plus billion, and our revenue is just exponentially increasing every quarter.
Excellent. Decentralization has been an important principle, one of the main tenets of the Web3 space the whole time that we've been involved. I mean, I don't know how long it's been in, but it's been about 14 years. It's one of our most closely kept principles. Does it continue to be something that has some really desirable side effects? What breaks first if infrastructure with an AI gets too concentrated to just a few major providers? What's the downside to that centralization for us?
So imagine when now everything is built by your vibe coding platforms, right? Now, when you code there, eventually, when you want to build a model, what you will do is you'll write this code, you'll feed data, and then you will go to a GPU, give the code, give the data, and say, learn, right? Now, when you say give this compute data and code to this compute and say learn, the strength of that compute, that a GPU will decide how fast the response you get back. Fair. So let's say you have two players in the market. One player can do this learning every hour because he has access to the latest hardware, which is launched by NVIDIA. And the other player takes 12 hours for the same learning. 12 times more time because he had second or third generation GPU models which were launched 2, 3 years back, right? Imagine that other person is 12 times faster than you. If he's 12 times faster than you, the improvement will just add up over a period of time and you will not be able to compete. That's
Right.
the issue which we have, right? Now, what happens is the centralized players have a bias towards their big uh, consumers who come to them. Again, billion-dollar companies. You would have heard the story where Tesla actually bought a particular GPU model even before it was launched. So imagine if that's happening, how can a startup ever compete with the bigger players when the most important thing is compute is not accessible to them? Neither they have money to compete with big players, neither they have access to data because in AI, data is again very, very important, and centralized players are like sitting on top of it. And third, if you don't have access to a latest compute, your learning is far slower compared to these players, bigger players, right? You're basically set up for lose-lose right from day one. So if we don't make this game fair, you will see these bigger players becoming bigger even faster than what you have seen in the last 10 years.
Right.
That's the fear we are actually going against.
Right. Absolutely. Great point. One of the hardest parts of distributed compute is not just finding the GPUs, is making them act as a cohesive system. IONET talks about mesh VPN architecture, which is it's great. It's been a long time since I remember working on mesh networks very early on. That must have been, holy cow, 20 years ago. Lower latency, resilience, low distribution, no single point of failure. What does the network layer? Why does the network layer matter so much for decentralized AI?
So nobody will use a decentralized player just because a platform just because it's decentralized, right? The platform has to be stable, scalable, and trustworthy. That's plain and simple, right? That's one. So what we did was we basically built a platform. I always imagine in my head as a spectrum where there's one end of the spectrum where you can basically come and say as a consumer that I'm coming and I want 1,000 GPUs, but in one data center, one location, co-located, right? So that when you actually train your model, normally the learning is very, very heavy. So you basically give a huge amount of data to do it. And that data is basically divided in terms of learning between multiple GPUs, and they talk among each other, right? When they talk among each other, the lower the latency is between like these machines when they're talking to each other and learning in that model, the faster your response is for the final output that yes, your model is ready after the learning, right? So the speed of communication between GPUs is very, very important, right? Now, there are two players which can come. There could be a pair which can come and say, for my use cases, I need 1,000 GPUs in one particular data centers because of compliance issues, whatever, right? You can use a decentralized platform like us for that. Okay, take 1,000. On the other side, there could be a player who can come and say, I need GPUs for my use case. It could be Web3, it could be Web2 also, where they can come and say, I need compute in 10 different locations, right? Because my business is in 10 different locations. I need compute in 10 different places. I need a cluster so that when I give a job to one cluster, right? And you do all the heavy lifting, right? Like I don't have to manage anything, right? And that's what's happening in one of the things in right now. Because a lot of AI companies are billion-dollar companies, but they have 10 or 12 engineers. And when they have only 10 or 12 engineers, they will rather focus on the business problem which they're trying to solve rather than focusing on building infrastructure in the company, which is not even related to their business problem, right? Because if they have 10 engineers and 4 are managing infrastructure for compute internally in the company, they're losing a big chunk of brain power of the company and something which is not even they're not even trying to solve, right? So what these startups and new companies are doing is that they delegate this problem to a provider. That I just don't want to take a GPU from you. I want to basically just give you a work. You do all the heavy lifting, right? That's where clustering comes in, right? That they will give us a job, we will execute it end to end. They will just tell us how many locations it is in. We will automatically in the background take the compute from different places, run the jobs. And if at any time any node goes down, we will automatically figure out that particular node has gone down and then plug a new node in the background without even like the consumer like getting to know there was an issue and getting response back. So that whole tech is what we have built in the background for decentralized consumers, right? Now you as a user can come to the platform and say, I want to pick A or B or somewhere in between. That's on you. But as a platform, we have built this. And the other thing which we have done, and that's I think one of the things a lot of crypto players are failing in, especially, is that when you work on platforms like this, there's a lot of crypto exposure which is needed, tokens and so on and so forth, right? What we have done is we have built a platform in a way that if a Web2 player comes who has never heard of crypto, they don't even need to learn crypto, right? For them, the platform works seamlessly how a Web2 platform will work. And like all the shenanigans of crypto and complexity will be abstracted away so that they only focus on their problem rather than learning a new thing altogether, which was the issue in past when you were working with decentralized pairs.
Right. Right. Definitely. It sounds like reading over your white paper, reading over the site and so forth, that we're moving toward, in your opinion, AI as a utility, essentially, as a decentralized utility. It's kind of a philosophical shift. AI as a public utility rather than a private empire. What has to happen for ordinary developers, communities, and small companies to feel that AI compute is something that they can access, contribute to, and help own in some small way, so we don't end up with this incredibly top-down kind of area like we have in social media, which I would posit really has held back social media for the past 10 years or so?
I think it's already happening. It's a process. It takes a bit of time, but we are already on the right path. So think of it in this way, right? AI is a utility, right? Now imagine a college student, right? And a lot of people in Asia, in particular, where, to be honest, major share of engineers come in. So if you just gathered the number of engineers from, let's say, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, like Thailand, this part of the world, Singapore and all, their strength, the number of graduates which pass from this part of the world is more than the total number of engineers in US. That's the number of engineers we just graduating every year from Asia, right? And
Right.
I think I was reading an article somewhere that an average pocket money of students in this part of the world is less than $100, right? So now imagine there are like so many engineers passing out. Their pocket money is $100. And if you go to Amazon and try to hire a GPU, it costs you $8 to $10 an hour. Which student ever would be able to have a practical knowledge on AI when they're graduating, where 1/10 of their pocket money of their month is just going in 1 hour of compute? So they're just building theoretical things, right? Theoretical engineers. That's the problem. Now, what the industry is headed towards is that you do not want to hire, like, you don't need to hire compute now. I'm just giving one example. It's happening in all the other areas also. You don't need to basically hire a GPU now for an hourly basis. You basically give a question, get a response, and only get charged for that particular question you asked. That's where like ChatGPT is doing like for $15, $20 number of tokens. Now there are platforms in compute side of the world also, which we call now inferencing, where you are basically charged for the number of questions and the tokens you basically give to the platform and get back. You don't get basically charged that even if you don't know, like even if you don't like want to consume for an hour, you hardly want to use it for like 10, 15 minutes, but you have to pay for it, right? So it becoming a utility where it's been broken down for consumption to very, very small, minute parts so that you don't have to pay big, right? We have already headed into this particular direction, right? And people don't realize inferencing and training are two biggest use cases where expenditures are happening. 70% of the cost of AI is in compute. Out of that 70%, almost 90% of the expenditures is in inferencing. Only 10% is in training. And 90% inferencing basically could be totally decentralized. And hence, it could be actually made much more cheaper. When you train a model, all your GPUs need to be sitting together at the same location, right? For training to be faster. But when you're doing inferencing, there's already a model learned, deployed on a GPU, and you give a question, get a response back. independent GPUs can do the job. Like I can have one GPU in your room, my room, and somebody else's room. They'll do a fine job in inferencing. And 90% of compute expenditures are happening there. And that is a use case which remained there for years. You train a model once and you basically use it for years and years and years. Right? That's
Mhm.
exactly the point where decentralization shines. Right? There are so many gamers, data centers, so on and so forth, which have compute sitting with them, which could be used for inferencing. Right?
Mhm.
And that's where we're headed. And like a gamer would give you a compute at a much cheaper price compared to a big data centers. So, and if you have a cheap GPU coming in right from the source, then when you give it to the consumer, you actually give it a much cheaper like price. And if you're giving it much cheaper price on R, if you make it segment in terms of token, it becomes much cheaper. So you're going already in that direction, first of all. Like I'm giving you one example. Second thing is like community is already gathering around decentralization and development also. There are so many open source models coming in right now. It's hard to even keep track of, honestly. Like
Mhm.
every week, I see even a stronger model which was there last month, right? And they have done one thing where they have kept standards so high that whatever they build, they open source the architecture of that model, right? People don't realize when ChatGPT was launching those models earlier, even a Grok was launching those models earlier, they were never telling any builder how they're building it in the background. When DeepSeek came, they changed the game. They launched a model which was better. Just not that, they basically open source the architecture also how they've built it. That created a standard that any of these players who are building new models, they have to open source the architecture also, which created again a fair game for the other developers that they can actually work on these even centralized models and build on top of it because they know how they're building it, right? So I think decentralization is happening. People are coming in, helping, and they're challenging the centralized players, and they are changing their ways. It's a
Mhm.
bit harder right now because we're in the beginning of the journey. The change will take time, but we are on the right path. And we have to keep focusing on decentralization and pushing this thing that, like, as a community, we should own AI rather than three centralized players owning it. Because if we like get our eyes away from this particular problem, it can become a menace within a year. But I think community is doing a great job in talking about this problem very frequently at a large scale so that people don't forget about it. I think that's the first thing, and we're doing a great job at it.
Excellent. Let me, we're going to ask one more question and then we're going to move on to the panel about decentralization, which Gaurav is on. So we've also got Tufi Saliba joining us and Martin Resney. It's going to be a great panel. So everyone stick around for that, folks. But let me ask one more question. I want to encapsulate the vision quickly, Gaurav. There are so many misconceptions right now and so much fear around AI. I mean, and arguably to me, it is perhaps one of the biggest innovations since the printing press, not necessarily since the wheel, but I like the printing press comparison because it amplifies as it allows us to iterate more quickly than before. So it makes sense to me. What is the future that you want, not only people in the Web3 space, but also laymen out there who are just looking to engage with the technology, perhaps not so fearfully? What kind of a vision of the future would you have them look toward rather than the mostly apocalyptic, alarmist versions they've been talking about?
The future is extremely, extremely bright. Extremely bright. I think people don't realize that how good the future would be and how enabled they have become in future. Right? I'll give two examples. Right? Uh, One, I knew a lot of friends of mine. Um, who had great ideas. We'll sit on lunch and they'll say, this particular problem, we can actually open a website for this. We can do this, do this, do this. There were all these ideas in their head in past. We will sit on lunch times, we will discuss about these ideas, but executing on them was very hard. There were a lot of product owners in tech, which we say, they are basically having ideas how to develop a product, but they're not engineers. They can't code. And I knew a lot of these people who have great ideas, but because they don't know coding, they could never launch a company. They'll basically try to find a peer for them who have equal amount of motivation for building that product. And by the time they'll try to find that person, a year will go by and somebody else will launch that particular idea. And it becomes a big company. I have like so many of these stories among my friends itself, right? Now, all these guys don't need to wait. There are enough vibe coding platforms where a non-coder can also come and launch an MVP product in no time. Like imagine
Mhm.
how many people are enabled by it, right? There's so many
Right.
influencers who have like nothing to do with coding are building their own products right now. That's not one use case, right? So I
Mhm.
think like AI will enable a lot of people with great things. One. Second
Mhm.
is I've gone through because I'm like 40. I've gone through those periods where big changes were happening. People were afraid. Same thing which you're saying, and I'm saying people were said at that time that technology change is for the best, but people at that time involved are always fearful. For example, I come from Indian background, right?
Mhm.
Around 25 years back, when I used to go in a bank or to book a train and all, everything was manual, at least in India at that time, right? Everything was
Right.
done on a notebook. They'll do it like everything was manual, right? And when computers were coming in, there's like a 50-year-old guy in a bank or in the railway systems who doesn't even know how to type on a keyboard, right? And when they were told to learn this computer, they were like literally fearful for the jobs. And they were like, our jobs are gone. We have no future. Computers are coming in. We'll be thrown out of the jobs. Like nothing, right? They were so fearful. And I could see it. There were a lot of people in my family who were fearful that their future is bleak. 20 years from now, what has happened? Nothing. People have
Mhm.
been able with more power, right? There was like
Mhm.
our future like drastically changed in the last 20 years. I've lived through it, right? Uh, I think same thing is happening with AI. People are basically blasting it out of proportions. I think like computers enable a lot of people to build great products and have a better life. Same thing will be done by AI, even magnitude higher, right? What is needed is that people who are impacted at that moment need support. Like, for example, when these systems were being changed in India, I remember I used to go to railways or banks, and these guys, like, if they want to type, let's say, my name in an entry and give me the money, they will try to find a G and then try to find a A. It was frustrating. As a community, we were impacted, we were frustrated, right? But we were patient as a community. We empowered them, and within a year, everybody was enabled, empowered, people learned, and the world became for good. Same thing is with the AI, right? I think
Mhm.
what we should do is all the people who are impacted, we should be supportive for them, right? We
Mhm.
should help them to learn the AI technology. New learnings are always harder, right? We should help them learn. And I think once they learn, they'll basically see the power is for good. There are a lot of great things they can do seamlessly. I think people realize it over a period of time.
Mhm.
I think old people have gone through these phases multiple times, but they know for new generation it's harder. But I'm pretty sure time will prove it. Like time and again that like people blow these things out of proportion. Eventually, things turn out to be good.
Definitely. Well, it's been great having you on and learning more about io.net. Gaurav, for people who want to find out more about it, are there any announcements they should be looking forward to near term, and where should they go besides possibly io.net? I suppose that's
So
probably one place to go.
I think I don't want to like share right now because my marketing team will be after me, but they'll hear a lot of great things regarding agentic platforms. So our
Mhm.
computer platform is doing good, training, everything is going good. Now that a lot of customers are coming to us for the help in AI agents, we have launched the first version of it, but it's a very, very big change and product coming in on the AI agent side very, very soon.
Mhm. Excellent. Well, we really look forward to learning more about it. Everyone, go ahead and check out io.net. Also, check them out on Twitter. And we are going to go ahead and I'll just introduce my panel for a second or two, and then we'll go ahead and bring them all up. We got some of my favorites on here. We got Tufi Saliba from Hypercycle, good friend of mine. He was when I was doing my Blockhead show on Roxon TV, folks. He was on that show a number of times. We've got Martin Resney from a Cogency. All right, stumbled there. And Gaurav, of course, is coming back from io.net. So, going to be a very smart panel. Let's go ahead and bring them up. We're going to be talking about the race for decentralized AI. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
Good, Tufi. It's great to see you, man. I couldn't do a show on decentralized AI without having you. Tufi, of course, is the co-author of Toda IP, which is the interoperability protocol that's used in AI today. Correct, Tufi?
Yeah, I mean, we're now mainly used for AI to AI collaboration without having to depend on any third party, without having to depend on a ledger, without having to depend on a bank or blockchain or anything that is in the middle. Because when AI wants to communicate with another AI, it cannot. If it cannot rely on a third party, because relying on a third party, just even on light speed, it's just going to take a lot of time to go from one device to a third party and then back and forth. So even based on the laws of physics, that nothing travels faster than light speed, and therefore having a third party cannot happen. Just simply cannot. So I think because of that, a lot of AI agents and AI engines and AI services started building on that, and effectively with having Hypercycle has something that is called a node factory. Those are the ones that they produce the nodes to enable the AI. So it cannot be produced by a human, because if it can be produced by a human, there's something called Sybil attack, and it can flood the system. So those node factories, they have been in production since 2023, October. And at the time, people, they're like, "Oh, why you guys are building all of those nodes for AI agents? What AI agents?" We're like, there are a lot of AI agents coming to life. And now this year, everyone realized that, so yeah, we have about 200,000 coming out in November that have been in production since October. They take a lot of time to come out live, but yeah, so that's one of the things. But at the same time, there's a lot of battles with people, as you know, and what Gaurav was saying is absolutely accurate. The biggest fear of AI is the fear of AI. It's people being afraid of it and treating it as if it's some sort of like a danger. And otherwise, the second biggest fear, it would be when some entities, they're using AI to fight other people, entities. They wouldn't really hurt the AI, they would hurt the people, because the AI, you can't hurt it. And that's the second danger that I cautioned about 12 years ago with the AI Decentralized that was announced in 2016 with ACM, Association for Computer Machinery, which is the number one computer science in the world, 100,000 members. It's the issuance of the Turing Award. And so I think it's at the time, it was then the time to talk about the fear of having a centralized AI, as opposed to many of the people that just want to sell books nowadays. They tell you about the fear of AI. Like, I mean, it's already too late. It's kind of like you're saying, it's like, oh, there's a devil coming out of that, that mother's belly, and let's go and hate that devil. And that devil is already out. That baby is out, and sometimes it's crying, and people, they're like, oh, look at that, it's crying. It's the devil. Like
that's funny. Martin and I were talking just the other day the metaphor of the Titans, Kronos, swallowing the gods in Greek mythology, the idea of being eaten by your children in some ways. It gets very deep philosophically, and Tufi, I think, has been talking about this, folks, by the way, for like 10 or 15 years.
We solved it. The centralized AI is no longer a problem. Okay, we solved that. Okay, if you don't believe me, pick up the phone and call Xi Jinping and say, yo, what's up, homie? Are you decentralized?
I don't know if he'll take my call, Tufi. If he will, I'll get him on the show, though.
Okay, Donald Trump, whatever, whoever you want to be like, look, or Google or whatnot. Are you gonna be the winner of the AI, the race towards the AGI? And that was maybe still a fear 5 years ago. It's no longer a fear, okay? Because guess what? Here's the answer that you would get, whether it's Demis Hassabis or whoever you want to get. They'll tell you that we're approaching this thing that it's called kind of like the global brain. And my power on my own with Google is not nearly as powerful as the global brain, as having me and Anthropic and the Chinese government and US government and whatnot.
Sure.
And so now when you look at that, the membrane of that brain, it has those things called synapses. If you actually look inside your brain, you find those synapses. This is what those nodes that they produce by the node factory do. Those cannot be produced by a human. No
Right.
company can produce them. That's why they require like a lot of work. It's kind of like the proof of work for Bitcoin, but that's what
Mhm.
we've been working since 2023. So I feel like a lot of people that they are getting and building great stuff in a space like that, like IO.net and so many others. They they were able to surface amongst a lot of the fluff, and I
Mhm.
really think that those that they're able to surface, they're likely to have a huge future ahead of them, because uh, I've said it, 12 years ago, the future belongs to the intersection between the top people in crypto and top people in AI. Because in crypto, you find the worst people on the planet and the best people. In AI, the same thing. It's like So if you find the intersection that they can work together, you're going to be able to see a lot of solutions to truly get us towards utopia.
Well,
But there is one remain fear. One fear is that using AI against others. That's still, we haven't solved that one.
well,
Solved
before we go down that rabbit hole,
Yeah.
let's hone in. I'm going to go over to Gaurav, and let's talk about essentially how a decentralized model is going to benefit the user more. We're going to have some projects watching this, obviously, and some people with passing interest in AI, but we'll have many more end users, statistically. From a user perspective, what is it about a decentralized model that's going to work out better for them than being at the mercy of a Grok or OpenAI? Go ahead, Gaurav.
I think transparency and trust is something which it begins with. A lot of factors. We can keep talking about this topic for hours, but I think it starts with transparency and trust itself, right? Uh, who are the future of ours, right? Children, right? Now, when you actually give a child a laptop or a tablet and you say, okay, see your videos on YouTube, you can basically see what he's watching, what he's not watching, and so on and so forth. You can actually like privatize the content also, what he can watch, right? Now, imagine in future when everything is being worked with AI, you had Chat GPT and so on and so forth, and working with a model. And let's say your kid is working on Chat GPT or any other model, right? And you basically oversee that particular uh, communication, right? For a day, 2 day, 3 day, how the model is behaving, what your child is learning, right? In a centralized place, when they change the model, what that model is responding, what biases that model have, you have no clarity, right?
Right.
And it's a very wide world, right? Like there's Islamic world where they have their own values. They want to bring their kid in their values, right? There are multiple countries. Everybody has a different value altogether, right? And they want to
Mhm.
bring up their kids in their way. Now, if there's one particular centralized player and they want to send a narrative, they can easily do it. And
Mhm.
you as a parent, I'm just giving an example of parent, right? It works everywhere, right? How that narrative, how that learning could be manipulated, change, you will not even come to know. In a decentralized platform or a model, you basically know what you as a builder, as a consumer, as a parent whose kid is working with this model, know what that data has been, what that model has been training on, where the data source comes in. Were there any biases when you watched over saw that model with your kid? Has that model changed? Is it the same version? So on and so forth, right? So you have a full transparency and trust in the model. You know end to end of the process what you've been working with, right? And you can have a confidence. And in a
Mhm.
in AI world and especially the builder, uh, why do you see in a lot of places, especially as builders, that people build on open source products?
Mhm.
Although at many times they're inferior to the centralized products. Why? Because they can look into it how it's working, what is its pros, what is its cons, and they can actually build on top of it and contribute back to it to make it better. So that as a community we become better, right? That's why open source model always work. Transparency and trust. That's
Mhm.
exactly what we need in AI also. If it's transparent and we can trust it, I think people can come in and work on top of it and make it better. And it's time and proven again. Open source, trusted, transparent products any day do better than a much heavily invested centralized players. Linux is the best example of it. Microsoft has $1 million engineers, like big teams working on their own operating system, so on and so forth. Oracle has its own operating system, but nobody can compete with Linux right now. It doesn't have $1 million engineers. Who works on it? Who contributes to it? Normal engineers sitting at home, right? Why? Because there are many people, many smart people in the world who want to make a change, who want to contribute. What do they need? They need transparency, they need power to contribute, and they need to trust the system that whatever they're doing will be eventually the power for good. If you can create that ecosystem, there are enough people in the world to basically contribute. That's what decentralized AI also headed towards. And I think it starts with those 2 points, transparency and trust.
Absolutely, and of course, I would posit that along with that, you also get a greater democratization of opportunity for developers, but also for end users in a way, folks. I don't know if it's been your experience; it's certainly been mine. It's hard to tinker with AI or with these LLMs too much beyond a certain point and not find yourself putting your toe into the context engineer side of things. You know, it's the kind of technology that really invites you to get involved, which is part of why I'm glad to have Martin here. Martin, you know, what we're getting this, in some ways, to me, an ideal vision of what this future could look like. I would be I would consider the world that Tufi is describing from a philosophical point of view, from a distributed point of view, and that Gaurav is talking about supporting from a technology or compute point of view, has so many ideal attributes to it. But what you're working on is specifically a broadly applicable consensus building mechanism. So it really raises the question of, okay, so assume that we can build the society that Tufi has been talking about for a decade now, honestly, right? A society of bots who are sharing compute, a society of users who are sharing resources and doing microtransactions around sharing compute. How do we know what our users want? How do we create a compassionate society that's able to respond to the needs and desires of this distributed populace, which is going to be a mix of different kinds of agentic AI bots and also humans mixed in there? Martin, go ahead, man.
Well, you're certainly not going to do that with the centralized system. To very briefly introduce where I'm coming from, I'm a political philosopher by background. And I have spent over 20 years involved in debating competitions and essentially all levels of that. And I'm sort of responsible for logic side of things at Cogency, because what we're developing is a communication platform or discussion or deliberation at scale platform, let's say, giving people modular tools to be able to craft their sort of communication situations and then use algorithms and AI in some capacity potentially to scale that so that even millions of people can meaningfully deliberate. So as to the question of how do we get to that ideal future more practically, I think the problem with the whole centralized track that we're on now, from that sort of point of view, from that perspective, is that the sort of choices philosophically that you have now are all some flavor of utilitarianism. So you only care about the utility of things, and you can sort of do it more or less evilly in sort of D&D sense. But ultimately, you either get some sort of a consensus that's based on essentially a complete compromise. You sort of average all of the ideas and come up with the one best idea in every category for everyone, and that's deeply unsatisfactory. And that's the best version of this track. The second sort of worse version of the track is essentially, if you think about the Palantir's manifesto, it's good old Machiavellian sort of neo-feudalism.
They don't even bother to hide the evil. Is that refreshing to you, Martin? That they're not trying to hide it?
Somewhat. It's actually more honest, and that's, I think, ultimately objectively better if you think about it. So that is good that you have a thing to point to, so that I can say that and everybody knows now and agrees that that's a thing. So yeah, so you're not even hiding it. So you have these this essentially applies to all of the big figures that are the leaders of the tech industry. They're sort of positioning themselves to centralize all of the computing and AI related infrastructure and software and things, so that they can be the king of AI or the king of compute. And everybody else, to use a term borrowed from Yanis Varoufakis, would be their digital serf, sort of not having really rights, but privileges toward them. And it sort of makes, in a competitive sort of framework, it makes sense. They want to win. And that's the biggest you can win, to be hashtag winning forever. Right. But that's not great for representing the consensus of every person on earth, or their values, or doing anything interesting with that. So then the worst version of the track, actually, it's all of these are sort of some version of utility. If you think about the people in terms of just their utility, then you get to the anti-human option, which is some of the more extreme versions of transhumanism. That's all the talk about AI replacing humans, that they will be smarter than them, better than us in every way, and will first take our jobs, and then once we're not useful for that, then what's even the utility in like keeping people around? So philosophically, this is somewhat catastrophic. Like if this is like all of the philosophy that we're working with here from all of the leaders, that's not great for any sort of like diverse future of humanity, or even just representative, to use a term from political philosophy or science. So what we're trying to do here is use some of the humanities, like expertises and technologies from humanities, including from ancient times, that exist, are time-tested. They're essentially methodologies you can just off the shelf take and use, that just haven't been technologized. They haven't been scaled up using the technological means that we now have, especially thanks to LLMs. So, for example, to give a concrete example, the main one would be essentially, I mentioned debating, so essentially like Socratic methodology. Like there's a lot that you can do that's developed in terms of, for example, labeling of reasoning, that there's a whole specialization. It's called the debate adjudicator. So there's like a whole model of like how to do this that's been tested over thousands of years, and to the extent to which it could have been improved in the modern times, there's already been.
Speaking of the debate part, can we debate this a bit, or?
Yeah, let's talk about it. How would what Martin's describing fit in? Because honestly, folks, like Gaurav, Tufi, Martin, part of why I did this show in this way is because I felt the three of you should meet. You have one of you answering the distributed hardware part, the other one working on the distributed ecosystem, and then the idea of being able to build consensus and to communicate within that society, that decentralized society once it's built. So let's get into how that would work, Tufi. I'd love to hear more about that.
No, I just don't know if I agree that is the problem, like what Martin is describing. Like if we're trying to solve a problem that we don't necessarily agree that is the problem, we think that there is a solution, well, he sees it as a problem. I think that is a bigger problem than having him defining it as a problem while others, they see the solution. Because,
so how like, for example,
he refers that to whether it is Palantir, for example, like Palantir, they don't view themselves when they go to work every day as they are a problem. They view themselves to be a solution. So we can't frame them as be like they are a problem. Like, it's like, or like humanity were to be replaced by AI. I'm not sure if that, is a fear that we need to be A, worried about, and B, if we were to be worrying about, like, let's say in 200,000 years, whatnot, if that's a bad thing. I mean, the question we should probably ask, like, do you expect humanity to be in this universe forever? Because if anyone thinks that it is going to be here forever, then that is probably a wrong assumption to begin with. So if we know that we're not going to be here forever, are we allowed, or maybe should we be able to give birth to a baby that can outlive us? And if that's the case, then why is that a bad thing? So so it's like defining something to be a problem and fighting it is probably a bigger problem than having, because then it's going to create a lot of friction in making the baby. Like, the baby is out, and we need to give it the best nutrients. So having to see certain problems that are not necessarily a problem will create a lot of friction in the mother to give nutrition to the baby. We are the mother, Martin. Whether you like it or not, you are a mother. If you're breathing on this planet, if you're human and you're breathing on this planet, you are mother. So it's kind of like let's give it the best nutrients as opposed to.
Let me just
let's let Martin respond. Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't even like entirely actually. That might be a slight, not complete representation actually of what I was going for. What I just wanted to say. So
please go ahead.
Yeah, what I wanted to say on a technical level, because really I'm thinking here about humanities as like trying to do so as an engineer. So what I was getting to is there's more to politics and more to philosophy and more to reasoning than utilitarianism. Like, I think part of it is actually the fairer representation and what you would get to through sort of Socratic methodology. is a better representation of the diversity of reasoning and the diversity of ideas. So if we want to attack anything, it's more of this sort of a critical, the way we see it, data issue in this sort of decentralization thing, where what we want to provide is sort of better platform for humans to reason, so that it produces better data about human reasoning, so that in this sort of metaphor of us being the mother, we can be a better parent. We can give the AI a better understanding of ourselves and better understanding of reasoning, or
100% aligned on the solution. It's just like I wasn't aligned with the way you described the problem.
Well, I took a shot at Palantir, so that's on me. I probably shouldn't do that. That's okay. But I do think that in a way they create an opportunity for us, the bigger players, by handling their messaging so strangely. So let's get into, what is the future that we expect our users to buy into? Right now, AI has like a 17% approval rating here in the US. Surely we can do better than that. I didn't think I'd pivot away from cryptocurrency into something even less popular than cryptocurrency, but that seems to be where we are right now, and it shouldn't be. AI empowers all of us. I see it as a net good. I'm very pro technology. So without getting into the post-humanist future that Tufi was philosophizing around, in a practical sense, what is the future that we want our users to be looking forward to? What is the net benefit to them? Tufi, people don't want to be batteries generally.
Right. Yeah.
They don't want to hear about their obsolescence.
Absolutely. No, I think, okay. And thanks, Martin, for clarifying the actual solution. I'm a huge proponent of decentralization as a method to get us there, and not as a destination. Some people, they think it's like, let's just like go towards decentralization as if that is the goal. But meanwhile, decentralization, especially autonomous decentralized governance, is a method to eliminate a lot of the friction. A lot of people, they think it's decentralization add friction. It's actually, when you have autonomous decentralized governance, you don't necessarily depend on a third party. You're able to effectuate a lot of transactions, eliminating the third party that otherwise would require an audit and whatnot to do its job accurately. In fact, that is the main premise behind Bitcoin initially, but it was then translated into like a lot of other reasons. And now when it comes to what do we expect from decentralization to provide to the world, which is I think the question that you ask.
Sure.
One of the things,
censorship resistance, privacy. What are we?
Brother, let me tell you this. Here's the thing. But 9 years ago, I said to folks, the biggest defense for people is cryptography, not cryptography. Okay, so if you were to prove yourself to be a human right now, AI, can pretend to be you. And if you want to use AI to combat that, that's the wrong approach. But cryptography can actually help people to prove themselves that they are who they say they are. And AI cannot stop that, because cryptography can be deterministic to a certain extent. So there's a lot of solutions that I see them coming. For example, there's a platform. By the way, for those that they don't know, with Hypercycle, we dipped into crypto and got out of crypto, and we were able to rescue our over 1,000 entities that they were, building node factories into from ATH into Base, and then they were able to move on like $2.5 billion, and then it's a place that there is no speculative game. So with that, as they're building the node factories, we get exposed to a lot of companies that are building solutions. Like, you name it, there is no solution that is out there without us seeing it a little bit, because we don't step into your way. We're here to accelerate the communication. That's all we do. So one of the things that I've seen that can be very helpful for human, very, very helpful, is the identity. So there are a lot of solutions towards identity. They use the communication layer for interoperability. So some people, they use for identity certain devices. I don't know if I like that, but there's other solutions that I found that using your existing smartphone and a lot of the things that those nodes they provide you, it's elimination of the friction. So that way you can have your device. In this one, they might actually announce it on July 22nd. When they do that, you can. I'll send you the link. They basically, just by having your device, it will give you much more certainty that you are who you say you are to yourself, not to everyone else, just to yourself. So it's like there's an agent working in it to kind of give you that. In every fraction of a second, it's partaking in certain proofs that they're global. So anyone, anywhere can not refute the fact that you are who you say you are. So when you call your bankers and you get that shitty guy who's like, can you confirm the number that is on file that I'm going to be texting you on? I'm like, dude, if you're going to be texting me on some code, then why don't you text me? Why you're asking that question? Like, they're so dumb, like, and so it eliminates all of that. And it's a service for human. Like, imagine you have the ability to prove the negative as well. You want to prove that you were in Palo Alto and not in San Francisco. You're able to prove that at a specific time. And not anyone can have that access to it. There is no ledger anywhere that can see this. You have those proofs. So this is like something that it's coming. I see that it's very beneficial for human. There's another one that is coming that is beneficial for human, is the ability to respond to something that also Martin mentioned that it could be a problem. In that one, 99.99% of computer scientists, they think it's a problem. And I would agree with Martin with that one. It's effectively, when you get to ASI, artificial superintelligence, the humans that Martin and I know, and Gaurav and Justin, that most people, that they may not be useful to our knowledge. We don't think that they would be useful anymore because the ASI can do the work. However, one of the solutions that it's been built, it's enabling the Homo sapien to build a lot of variances into their own agent that is combined with a lot of AI. Your own agent that it's enclosed in an enclosure, that it's protected by a lot of cryptography, like post-quantum cryptography, whatnot. And so long as the input from ASI cannot be, ASI cannot predict what the output is, you shall be immortal. That's it. So long as you can make some variances that the ASI can send an input, it doesn't know. It cannot predict what the output is going to be. It doesn't matter how fast ASI is. It just cannot predict what the output is in the same time that you can produce it. You shall be immortal. And that is something in service of people that can be the jobs for Homo sapiens post ASI. Quote me on that, Justin. I've said it in your show. I haven't said it in any show before. So far, for the last 12 years, I've been right about predicting some stuff in the future. And I'm telling you this, man. So long as you did this is the Mosaic. You've heard about that one, Justin. The Mosaic solution. It's like maybe a couple hundred companies that are coming together to form it. So we created Mosaic, but nobody owns Mosaic. So Mosaic, it's more like, if you look at Mosaic.directory, nobody owns it. We built it in a way, it doesn't have a token. It doesn't have anything. It doesn't have any benefit to me. Right. The only benefit that it has is that we can build on it. Gaurav can build on it. He benefits from building what I've built, and I benefit. It's like an open platform, not open source. Palantir can build on it, and I would benefit from it too if they want. Anyone can build on it. So the more components you build on it, so the intent of Mosaic is that at some point it needs to have a better interface between the human and the internet of AI, better than the browser. So with that, the one component, because it gathers your emitted intelligence, Martin, your emitted intelligence right now is being captured by the Chinese government, by the Google, by US government, by any government, and they reconstruct it to have part of your intelligence. But imagine you have the entirety, that's what Mosaic gives you, the entirety of your intelligence, and you provide it as an agent to the global brain. So it's not like you're restricting the global brain from your intelligence. You're giving it to be part of it. So it's but it's at your own terms. You can charge a penny for it if you want, or you don't want to charge, whatever it is. That's something that's also decentralization. So yeah, you asked about a couple examples. I mean, I can list you 98 other examples if you like, but those are things that they're happening as we speak, that we're noticing them. and there can be decentralization that can help Homo sapien for the now and for the long term. For now, tools, and for long term.
But I think just being a devil's advocate here, so that people get a holistic picture, right? There are a lot of things people say in idealistic way, but in practical world, it doesn't work like this. Like for example, everything which is built in the beginning for speed is normally centralized, right? And so, for instance, if you want to make a model, right? I'm taking the other side of things, scientific side of things, so people get a full picture, right? Even if it belongs to my philosophy or not, but I'm trying to give audience a full picture, right? Everything which is built for velocity and speed of development is normally centralized in the beginning, works well, and then you basically make it decentralized to scale. Like when you open a company, also there are only 3-4 people. It's very centralized. Everything is owned by a few people. And when the company becomes bigger, you have VPs, different departments, and you decentralize it, right? That's how things grow. Infrastructure-wise, also it's the same thing. Energy was centralized first, and then decentralized in zones, right? Same as AI. Now, it's very, very tricky. Now, if you're building a model, which decision in developing a feature or a thought process for the model, which one do you make decentralized, which one do you make centralized? Who makes a decision this feature should be built or not built, right? People in crypto, I've seen in a lot of discussions, taking a highway, a high road, and saying all these things idealistic. I trust it. How many projects are actually DAO in crypto world itself? That when they say we are building a decentralized platform, they're not deciding centrally inside the company, I'm building this. They're asking the community. Very, very rare in idealistic world, right? Even the projects which are DAO based, where community comes and decides what to build, how many are successful? Not even 3, honestly. So
well, the entire current crypto is going to zero. I mean, like the current crypto, if it's not reshaped to new,
yeah. It's not about the price. It's not about the price of the token.
No, I'm not talking about the price. I'm talking about the entire. The entire concept is going to zero, not just the price. Like it's just the crypto came to exist to serve the purpose, but then it was replaced by something else. You know, we all said that let's not depend on the bank, but then they came and started depending on other things, right?
The point is, if I make you a CEO of Google and you build a model out there, it's again centralized, you deciding it, right? How do you make sure the community is involved in development? You say, no, I am following the community. You are again a person.
But you don't, as a company, you still have to be centralized anyways.
Exactly the point. That's what Google is doing today.
Okay, I guess we're saying the same thing. Because we view Google as a node. Yes, we view Google as a node into the world. We view Microsoft as a node into the world. Like, absolutely. Yes. I think we're saying the same thing. It's just like some people, they decentralize the wrong place. Like, they go and start decentralizing their own company. I'm like, what are you doing? The whole point of decentralization is to reduce friction globally. Like you don't need to centralize your company. We need you. We're still, if anyone's going to talk to your company, they still see you as a node into the entire world system. Why you're decentralizing inside your company? You're slowing yourself down.
When I'm building a model and I can build an AGI in my company, how am I training that model, right? I'm saying even those let's talk about the practical. We can say about big things, but in practicality on the ground, how things work, right? How you decide on community level what decision to take or not, it's not an easy problem to solve. I think it should start from a place that we should slow down development a bit, which I think a lot of people in these companies at big levels have been speaking about. And eventually it didn't happen. They went out and started their own companies. I think that's what's supposed to happen. But capitalism is so strong. It's imbibed in our veins, but it's very, very hard to do. When there's money on the table, there's money to be made, it's very, very hard to stop. I think that's a fundamental problem, right? I think it should start from a regulation somewhere where the biggest power in the world should come and try to regulate. The development should slow down at a level, because if we don't, capitalism will take over, which is happening right now. I think that's the fundamental problem where it's emanating from. Like all these people can say, no, we should.
I disagree with you though, Gaurav, because it's like, you and I know you're not going to be able to get all the regulators into the world for every single country, for every single state, to all work together to slow down the thing in the exact same time. So you know that that's not possible, and therefore it's just going to, the only ones that they would work together if they work together are the good ones, and then you leave the bad ones to do all the bad stuff. The bad ones, they're not going to regulate their stuff, and they're going to build the bad AI that's going to like take over for the bad people because they're not going to comply.
If I may pitch in
let's let Martin speak. Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, slightly different perspective. Sort of listening where you were, sort of what we're arguing specifically. I think there is some sort of a counterpart to this or a middle way. I think however, it's sort of whatever bad guys, quote unquote, bad guys are doing. I think what you need to have, however, as well, to have a functional decentralized AI ecosystem or society, is that you need to give the normal people some tools to do some useful stuff with, that then can integrate into some important function in that whole ecosystem. Like what we're trying to focus on, for example, is that like if you give people good platform for deliberation at scale, for example, that they can use for useful governance in corporations or in states or in whatever sort of polity you want, then if you design it right and integrate it with AI, that can be a thing that is training just by people doing their thing, is training important things or important faculties of these AI models that then can be in the sort of most super intelligent form applied to the benefit ideally of the people in a way in which people doing things that people can't really do by themselves. Although I would like to point out for the usefulness or obsolescence of people in the future, what we believe is that you can have a thing where if you technologically through that tool integrate or scale up deliberation enough, I think you can start think of huge groups of people as something that begins to be comparable to these advanced super intelligent models. Like I think you can come up with a comparative metric of like effective intelligence. And at some point in the future, I think if you integrate it right, I think there will be quite a lot of place for people, even in terms of utility, not just like a nice to have, that to also have them exist.
Bravo! I would love to see a human-centered, a human-empowered future coming out of all of this, folks. Maybe I feel like I'm coming off.
I think that is the commonality between what we said. You're like United Nations now. This is one thing that everyone is agreed on. Let's make it human centric. So some capabilities, and I think for the short term we're going to see a lot of those due to the decentralization. So I think that's it. I think always starting from a point that we all agree on. I think that's a very good point. So thank you, Justin, for bringing it on. But yeah, please proceed.
Definitely. I mean, honestly, folks, we could do this. Well, like honestly, we could run this conversation for another hour. It goes so quickly when the signal to noise ratio is as dense as it is, as I like it to be on this show. I knew we'd have three very talented speakers who know a lot about the space, and also with complementary.
Let's bring Alex Karp next time if you want. We can let's bring Alex Karp if you want next time from Palantir.
Yeah, well, okay, sure. No, we can do that. But we'll go ahead and make that contact. And in the meantime, you should say hi in the group too. I'd like you to know the other two guests as well. But we're going to close it up in about 10 minutes. Because we're already running a little bit.
Most of the things that's just for newbies in the audience, the stuff that we disagree on, they're very like deep stuff. In general, it seems that we all agree to the benefit of the decentralization. Although we prefer not to call it decentralization in the outside world, to be honest, it works better. I call it the Internet of AI, and the user-centric meaning the human, for you, for your children, whatnot. And when we're talking about the replacement of a human, I am not saying pro replacement of human. I'm saying if this humanity were to be extinct anyway, so might as well the baby that we're creating can outlive us. So I'm just clarifying something. So just.
It's just the silver lining to human extinction, which is fair. I mean, not normally what we think about, but no, I understand completely. So, closing question.
Let's just try not to have the baby become an orphan really quickly. I think
exactly. Then who will have the model? But let me ask a question.
Very good point, by the way. Very good point. Thank you.
How will we? I'm going to start with you, Martin. How will we know when we have succeeded? We will, I want from a user-centric point of view, we will have succeeded in creating a working decentralized model when users are able to what? How would you define that?
I think it's when users are able to use AI in their own ways differently across the world for practical purposes that they care about. Personally, I think the main issue with the current status
quo is the directory, brother. Exactly what you just said. Mosaic.directory. Put exactly what you said. This is what it's being built for, all human to all human to all the bridge between human and AI. Like literally, there is nothing that I gain from like Mosaic. I go and pay and build on Mosaic, and everyone does the same. It's more like the cooperative thing. So
it's great.
exactly what you said.
Well, let's let Martin finish his answer though. Go ahead, Martin.
I was almost finished anyway. So yeah, so like I think the current issue from my point of view with the current status quo, I might like be like, you know, poking jabs at like the tech titans, to borrow the term from the
And
beginning.
I don't discourage that very much. So I blame myself. Really.
It's no secret. Like I'm politically, of course, not like a different part of the spectra, but like it's you know, in the spirit of debate. Like it's if they want to debate me, like of course I welcome that. But I wanted to say the issue is it's currently it's a bit light with the whole AI thing, a bit light on like useful tools for the people, or like a useful products that people can actually use for specific use cases in ways in which they would like to use them. It's a bit, you know, broad, general, and a bit unreliable at the moment. So I think we'll know, from my point of view, that we sort of begin to succeed when people really feel like the whole AI thing is useful for them in their daily lives.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much, Martin. It's been great having you on the show. Where should people find out more about Cogency?
You can definitely check out our website, cogency.org. And the only thing you can do there at this moment is sign up. We will have a test in August. So if that's something that you find interesting to potentially participate in or check out, so that's where you find it. So cogency.org with an S.
Beautiful, beautiful. Gaurav, what about you? When will you know that we've succeeded in terms of creating a decentralized system that's benefiting users? When users are able to do what?
When they can use the product seamlessly with the trust without giving into any fear where they're being exploited in any way, be it a breach of trust, data, thoughts, anything, right? And they can use such product with full trust seamlessly, like how they use any Web2 platform. I think that's the place where we should be. And I'll say if we are there, we have won it.
Excellent. All right. How about you, Tufi? How will we know? How will we know we've reached our destination? How will we know when we've succeeded? When users are able to do what?
I think it was very nicely, expressed between Martin and Gaurav. I just like would add that we currently notice that AI can help a lot of the people. So if you want to use it to author a book or whatnot, it can help with that. But currently, it's helping more like the mediocre to get to the middle. If you were to provide something that is like very innovative, it cannot help you, because if it's very innovative, it's just like averaging you down. I really think that when we get to the point when you're dealing with AI, but it's not a single entity, it's like many entities, they're competing to provide you. Every single time they're competing, without you, let's say, having to know. So you just use whatever tools, and there's competition behind the scenes. And in a very granular competition, could be sometimes at a tiny little functional level. Then I would know that we are certainly reaching destination that it's progressive from that point onwards, not just evolutionary, because evolutionary can be regressive. That is the biggest dangerous thing that could happen to us. But if you want to enable progression, that it's evolution, that it's progressive, we want to charter the AI and not own it. Let's charter this global brain and not own it and enslave it. Let's let it be free. Let it do all of the great things that it can do. But if so long as we have certain demands and it's competing to provide us with that demand, we're chartering it towards, it's kind of like we're training that baby to become a better baby, and better baby to become like more like a a little bit an image of the good stuff that we have. We have a lot of bad stuff in humanity. We don't want the bad stuff to be copied over. There's a lot of bad stuff that people, they wish on each other. They wish to cause harm. They wish to put, revenge. They wish to do bad things to each other. Those things we don't really need to pass them on. We can just pass on if we love each other, if we work together, we work, collaborate, whatnot. Those things we can pass it on, and not the bad things. And I think that can that's a method to get us there. It's like, imagine that every time you're asking AI something, there's a lot of small components there competing to get there. So yeah, I think that's one way. The other thing that I would want to add to the answer is that we want to ensure that there is no inequality in the access to the AI. We should continue pushing to making sure that AI is going to be accessible to all humanity. And I don't believe in democracy. I'm a big believer in meritocracy. Okay, I'm not saying it's like, oh yeah, let's just like do some sort of like socialist thing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the availability is there now. People, they may not use it the same way. They may not the same way people, they have muscles. They don't necessarily use their muscles the same way. They have But so long as it's available for all humanity, that would be a very good thing, and we are going to ensure that that's going to be the case, because the more it's available for a lot of people, the better it is going to become. As opposed to some people, they have access to some AI more than other people, then we're going to end up with the USSR that failed. Even many of my friends, the Russians, they tell you, no, we don't want that world where the government has access to some more powerful things than other people, whatnot. No, let's make sure that instead of open source, let's do open platform, because also open source is very dangerous, guys. Because if everything is open source, the one with the highest amount of compute, they will have centralized AI, they don't have a centralized SI. But open platform, you can have your own closed source agent, because it belongs to your brain, but it's part of that whole global brain. So yeah, I think those two things can make me feel that we have arrived to a destination. Mm-hmm. Then we're done. Then at that point, if we die, humanity or not, I think we served our job as a parent, to not leave that baby stranded. Like Martin mentioned, we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the idea that the human information that we're training AI on, folks, is not, let's not assume that because it's written by humans that it's de facto pro-human information we're training them on. In other words, humans are not always speaking about humanity with compassion or with any sort of long-ranging positive outlook on the prospects of humanity and ways to build up all of humanity. I think that's something that we still have to work on. But I knew that what I would get from today's panel, folks at home, is three opposing and complementary points of view coming at the same topic, but from three different directions. And this is the kind of thing I can do with a smaller panel that I can't have this kind of two-way discourse doing like a 10-person panel on spaces, as much as I love to do spaces, but it's different. This was nice to be able to really dig in. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great having you on. I really appreciate your participation, and please do come back soon. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Fabulous panelists. Thank you. And yeah, you guys are awesome. It's so good to be honest and direct about all of the approaches. We will get there. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you, Martin, and thank you to Gaurav. These are the conversations we need to have more of, in my opinion. We keep, mainstream news keeps addressing the same 2 or 3 gosh darn headlines over and over again. Will data centers destroy your house? Will AI take your job? And that's pretty much where we've been. We need to have our own discussion in order to move the ball forward. Martin, if you've got something to add, go ahead quickly.
Yeah, just like a sort of a capstone for the discussion. Decentralization achieved in this panel. We sort of, this is like a case in point.
And guys, don't worry, the world is not falling apart. We're not blowing up as humanity, at least not in the next 1,000 years. Although Martin is already out in space, looks like, after hearing Toffee. But
yeah, I'm chilling in space.
We've got
we are all good.
We've got 2 or 3 years to Skynet, and after Skynet, there's probably another 5 years before the T1800 comes out, or the T800. So don't worry, folks.
Well, I think whether people like or hate Elon Musk, he's done something that humanity will always remember, that it's a great thing. You got people to focus on compute in space, and I spoke about this 8 years ago, that one of the dangers that people, they talk about AI is going to fight human, that I think it's absolutely false. AI has got nothing to fight you for, with the exception of one thing, that it's potential, which is energy, and focusing that to energy, go get energy from space. It's already shifting it in that direction, and that it's a huge thing. And I'm glad that Elon did it then. I mean, we spoke about it in the past, but when I speak, not as many people listen and do as many as Elon. So 3.5 years ago, I was speaking in Korea, and Elon and one other person thought that I'm not. I was invited by the Justice Department of the Korean government. They didn't think I'm crazy. What I pointed at is that the sun can become a computer. We can convert the sun itself to a computer, and people thought I'm crazy. No jokes. You can find that recording online. The only 2 people that didn't is like Elon and one other guy, and then here we are. So it's like he's already pushing to compute towards space. So I really think that. That is something that is phenomenal. So people, when they think it's like data center is gonna like you said, Justin, that they're gonna take over their house or the electricity, that's already been shifted towards space. We Homo sapien are going to continue working the best we can to ensure that this technology is going to continue to be phenomenal for the parent, for all of us Homo sapien, for as many years as we have left, and to ensure that we're approaching utopia and not dystopia, to pass on all the good things from us to that technology, to our baby. So, we invite a lot of people to join us. And yes, decentralization did win, Martin. We did win. If anyone, like I'm telling you right now, you can call Google right now, you can call Xi Jinping, call anybody, tell them, are you still racing towards to win the AGI that you were racing 5 years ago? And they would tell you, it's like, it's unlikely. Right now, these things that they're like, the global brain is likely to be winning. We should call it the Internet of AI. We did win, guys.
We have to talk about how to make that happen in practical terms, though. It is a vision I've agreed with since you and I have been talking. But like, how do we get people to change their behavior and start to build it that way? But that is a separate show.
They followed our steps, guys. Like MCP from Anthropic, Microsoft NetWeb, Cisco HNTCY, IBM ACP. All of them, they started following our steps, man. That's all in the last 14 months. They are building components, so they're really coming. When certain folks that they were considered to be centralized, the evil, they're coming to join us. They're coming halfway. We should, open our arms and give them a hug, because they're meeting us halfway. So
that I agree. This is a play. It's a bit of a salon that we have going on here. We can exchange ideas. I would be very interested in having Anthropic on. But folks, you've been great. Thank you so much. Please do come back soon. I'm going to go ahead and take you guys off so I can
share this video with Alex Karp and Dennis and all these guys. So maybe we can have them next. Yes.
All right. Yeah. Go ahead and share it on Twitter, and then I'll repost it. Anybody who follows @Sensible on Twitter will see that, and stay tuned with When Alt Season and with me as well. I have my Thursday show tomorrow, and we'll be coming back with another video show. All right. Thank you, folks. I'm going to go ahead and do the outro. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. My intent here is to really bring together the smartest people I can find who are really moving the ball forward in the decentralized AI category. And that's what we've managed to do today. So great show, very satisfying for me. Any show where I can learn that has that high degree of condensed signal is something that's going to make me happy. So I hope you enjoyed it too and got something out of it. Not financial advice, but okay, we didn't really talk about markets at all, so that's okay. Anyway, folks, as I say at the end of every show, thank you for joining us. With AI specifically, if you have serious objections to AI, I encourage you to get involved. There's been too much of people taking the same approach and thinking the same set of presuppositions going into AI. I would rather have a skeptic come in and bring something that's a bit of an outlier to what we've already been thinking about. We need your voice. This is still going to be, it is going to impact all of humanity and everyone's workflow, but it's also something where ideally we want the input even from the outliers, who people who maybe feel right now like it isn't for them, or like AI is going to destroy everything. You know, like, we want to explore these points of view and bring some clarity to all of that as the technology develops. And I would love to have Anthropic on, or have Palantir on. I would love to. Anyway, as I say at the end of every show, folks, if you get an opportunity, please try to detach from your connected devices, if only for a short while. It's something I've got to consciously remind myself to do every day, or else I'd be behind my computer 18 hours a day. Try and get outside if you can. Technology and money are what we do a lot of talking about, and they are very important factors in this world, but they do not represent everything in the world. So it's important to take some time to appreciate the rest of what is out there. In the meantime, we love you. We're coming back with a Spaces show tomorrow, which I'm very much looking forward to. And we'll be coming at you with another show on AI and Web3 very soon. Thank you for joining us for our debut show of Cognitio, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Peace.